Dear friends, the knowledge I'm about to share with you today could take years to discover on your own. So listen closely. Imagine two homes in the same city, the same complex, similar rent. In the first home lives someone earning $180,000 a year. The moment you walk in, a massive television covering the entire wall greets you. A luxury sofa set worth $4,000. The latest kitchen appliances. Brand new clothes with tags still on them. A storage room packed with antique furniture. This person's eyes nearly pop out of their head every time they check their bank account. If two paychecks stopped coming, their life would fall apart completely. In the second home lives someone earning $78,000 a year. The first thing you feel when you walk in is space and simplicity. A modest sofa set. A medium-sized television. Only the kitchen appliances that are actually needed. A wardrobe with only the clothes that get worn. Every room is actually used. This person checks their bank account with complete peace of mind. 18 months of expense reserves sitting there, and 20% of every paycheck going straight to investments like clockwork. Same complex. Nearly half the income. 10 times the financial security. This is not a story about income. This is a story about the hidden and deeply rooted relationship between stuff and money that most people never notice. I managed finance projects after my doctorate and spent years teaching finance at university, and I can tell you this clearly. The biggest obstacle to financial freedom is not low income. It is a lifestyle built unconsciously that consumes every single dollar earned. The person in the first home does not even realize they are bad with money. No gambling. No harmful habits. They simply built, quietly and gradually, a standard of living that requires every dollar they earn just to maintain. The second person discovered something that changes everything. Owning less does not mean living worse. It means living deliberately. And deliberate living creates the financial margin that most high earners never once experience. Today, I am going to walk you through the minimalist money rules that separate people who always have money from people who never do, regardless of income. These rules are not about deprivation. They are about understanding that every object you own carries ongoing costs you have probably never calculated. First, let me introduce you to a concept that will change how you look at every purchase you make for the rest of your life. Everything you own costs you money twice. The first cost is obvious. It is the purchase price, the number you see at the register. But there is a second cost that most people completely overlook, and it is often larger than the first. The second cost includes storage, maintenance, mental energy, and opportunity cost. That treadmill you really wanted takes up roughly 2 square meters of your home when you account for clearance space. Most days it hangs clothes. You are quietly paying significant rent for exercise equipment you barely use, because the annual cost per square meter in large cities is substantial. The second cost also includes maintenance and repairs. That boat sitting in your garage needs winterization, cleaning, insurance, registration, and occasional repairs. The industry standard suggests annual maintenance costs run around 10% of the boat's value. So even a high-value boat that never touches water costs you serious money every single year. Not done yet. The second cost includes mental energy. Every item you own takes a small slice of your attention. It needs to be cleaned, organized, maintained, insured, worried about, and eventually disposed of. Research consistently shows that visual clutter raises cortisol levels and reduces the brain's ability to focus. Your stuff is stressing you out in ways you cannot consciously perceive. Still not done. The second cost includes opportunity cost. Every dollar locked up in possessions is a dollar that never reaches an investment. The money spent on that home gym could have grown into a significantly larger sum over 15 years in an index fund. You did not simply buy a home gym. You bought a home gym instead of future financial freedom. When you add up all these hidden costs, many possessions end up costing more to own than they cost to buy. The purchase price is just the entry fee. The ongoing costs continue for as long as you hold the item. Minimalists understand this instinctively. They're not avoiding possessions because they hate nice things. They're avoiding them because they have calculated the true cost and decided most things are simply not worth it. This brings us to the first rule minimalists follow without exception. Rule 1. Calculate cost per use before every purchase. Before buying anything, estimate how many times you will realistically use it. Divide the total cost by that number. This gives you the cost per use, which is the only honest measure of value. A $200 shirt worn twice costs $100 per wear. A $400 shirt worn 200 times costs $2 per wear. The expensive shirt is actually cheaper in every meaningful sense. This calculation destroys most impulse purchases instantly. A cleaning gadget you use twice a year costs an astronomical amount per use in the first year alone. That is a needlessly expensive way to accomplish whatever task it performs. Meanwhile, an inexpensive tool you use weekly costs just a few cents per use in the first year. The math cuts through marketing, emotion, and social pressure. It reveals what actually makes financial sense versus what simply looks appealing in the moment. Rule 2. Apply the replacement test to everything you already own. Walk through your home and look at each item you possess. Ask yourself one simple question. If this item disappeared today, would I spend money to replace it? Be honest. Would you actually go buy another sewing kit you use as a hobby? Would you replace that ice cream maker collecting dust in the cabinet? Would you repurchase clothes you have not worn in months? For most items, the honest answer is no. They exist in your life through inertia, not intention. They're impulse purchases, gifts you felt obligated to keep, or remnants of past hobbies and phases you have long since moved beyond. These items carry negative value. They cost you space, mental energy, and maintenance without providing any corresponding benefit. Every minute spent organizing, cleaning around, or thinking about items you would not replace is a minute stolen from things that actually matter. Minimalists ruthlessly eliminate items that fail this test. They sell what has value, donate what someone else could use, and discard what serves nobody. The process feels uncomfortable at first, then liberating. The psychological weight of owning things you do not want or need is substantial. Removing that weight creates mental space that is hard to describe but immediately noticeable. Decisions feel simpler. Rooms feel larger. Cleaning takes half the time. You know where everything is because everything remaining has a purpose. Rule 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. There is a pattern I see constantly among people who earn good incomes but still cannot build savings. They upgrade perfectly functional items simply because they are bored with them or because newer versions exist. Their television works perfectly, but the new model has slightly better contrast. Their phone operates flawlessly, but the new release has a marginally improved camera. Their car runs reliably, but the new model has updated styling. Their furniture serves its purpose, but they have grown tired of looking at it. These upgrades feel like improvements. They're actually wealth destruction disguised as progress. Minimalists maintain a firm policy. Never replace something that functions properly. A phone that makes calls, sends messages, and runs apps does not need replacing just because a newer phone exists. A car that reliably gets you from place to place does not need replacing just because a neighbor bought something shinier. This approach saves extraordinary amounts of money over a lifetime. Most people replace their phones every few years while the previous one still works perfectly. Applied across all categories where upgrade culture operates, the lifetime waste easily reaches hundreds of thousands of dollars. Minimalists escape this trap by defining functional clearly. An item remains functional until it genuinely fails to serve its purpose. Boredom is not failure. Desire for novelty is not failure. The existence of newer alternatives is not failure. Actual mechanical breakdown or genuine inability to perform required tasks is failure. Everything else is marketing convincing you to solve problems you do not have. Rule 4. Create friction for spending and ease for saving. Human behavior follows the path of least resistance. If spending is easy and saving is difficult, you will spend. If saving is easy and spending is difficult, you will save. Minimalists engineer their environment to make the right choice the easy choice. Spending friction looks like this. Remove stored credit card information from e-commerce platforms. Require a 24-hour waiting period before any non-essential purchase. Delete shopping apps from your phone. Unsubscribe from promotional emails. Avoid stores unless you have a specific intended purchase. Saving ease looks like this. Set up automatic transfers to investment accounts on payday. Keep only small amounts in easily accessible accounts. Make investment contributions happen before you ever see the money. Treat savings like a fixed expense rather than an afterthought. These structural changes matter far more than willpower. Willpower depletes throughout the day. Environment is constant. Someone relying on willpower to avoid impulse purchases will eventually fail when they are tired, stressed, or emotional. Someone who deleted the shopping apps and removed their credit card details simply cannot impulse purchase in that moment. Minimalists do not trust themselves to consistently make good decisions. They design systems that make good decisions automatic. The 24-hour waiting rule alone eliminates roughly 70% of impulse purchases. Most desires for objects fade within a day if not acted upon immediately. Rule 5. Count your possessions regularly. It sounds obsessive until you actually do it. Counting forces awareness. Awareness prevents accumulation. Pick a category. Count how many items you own in that category. Write it down. The numbers often shock people who have never examined their consumption patterns objectively. How many shirts do you own? Most people guess low and discover they have 3 or 4 times what they estimated. How many kitchen gadgets? How many pairs of shoes? How many items in your junk drawer? How many books you will never read again? The count itself changes behavior. Once you know you own 32 sweaters, buying another feels different. You are not adding a sweater. You are bringing your collection to 33. The absurdity becomes visible. Minimalists track key categories over time. They set maximum thresholds. Perhaps 40 total items of clothing. Perhaps 20 books at any given time. Perhaps a one-in, one-out policy where any new purchase requires removing something existing. These constraints prevent lifestyle creep. Without intentional limits, possessions expand to fill available space. With limits, each addition requires a conscious decision about what it is replacing. That friction alone dramatically reduces acquisition. Rule 6. Rent or borrow before you buy. Most items people purchase get used intensively for a short period and then rarely afterward. The excitement of newness fades. The initial enthusiasm decreases. The item joins the collection of things owned, but seldom touched. Minimalists test this pattern by renting or borrowing before committing to ownership. Want to get into camping? Rent equipment for the first few trips. Want to try woodworking? Borrow tools from a friend. Want to try skiing? Rent several times before purchasing. This approach accomplishes 2 things. First, it reveals whether the enthusiasm is genuine or temporary. Many interests fade after the initial exploration. Better to discover this while renting than after purchasing equipment that collects dust indefinitely. Second, it clarifies exactly what you need. First-time campers often buy too much or buy the wrong things. Renting lets you learn before committing. When you eventually purchase, you buy precisely what is necessary rather than guessing. The buy-first mentality costs people enormously over their lifetimes. Closets and garages across America contain dusty remnants of abandoned hobbies. Ski equipment from the phase when they thought they would ski regularly. Photography gear from when they imagined becoming serious photographers. Music equipment from bands that played 2 shows. Minimalists avoid becoming museums of past enthusiasm. They test interests before investing. They maintain the flexibility to explore without the burden of ownership. Rule 7. Understand the lifestyle multiplier effect. Every possession you own connects to other possessions. A boat requires a trailer, a tow vehicle, storage fees, maintenance supplies, safety equipment, and appropriate clothing. A purchase that seems singular actually triggers a cascade of supporting purchases. This is the lifestyle multiplier. Major purchases multiply into ecosystems of related expenses. The true cost is never just the item itself. A home gym requires flooring, mirrors, storage solutions, ventilation considerations, and often renovations. A pool requires chemical supplies, cleaning equipment, covers, furniture, maintenance tools, and often landscaping. A motorcycle requires gear, storage, maintenance equipment, and often a truck or trailer for transportation to riding locations. Minimalists calculate the full ecosystem cost before any major purchase. When all the multiplier expenses are included, the total often represents a far larger number than the original price tag suggested. This full accounting frequently transforms what seemed like a reasonable purchase into something clearly excessive. The multiplier effect also works in reverse. Eliminating one major possession often eliminates an entire category of related expenses. Selling the boat means no more storage fees, insurance, registration, maintenance, or towing costs. The savings extend far beyond the item's value. Rule 8. Define enough before you start earning. Here is what traps high earners constantly. They never define what enough looks like. So they keep purchasing more without ever arriving at satisfaction. Their income increases, so they upgrade their lifestyle. The new lifestyle becomes normal, so they need another income increase just to feel progress. This cycle continues indefinitely. People earning $600,000 feel just as financially stressed as people earning $90,000 because their expectations and expenses grew alongside their income. Minimalists break this cycle by defining enough before they start earning. They decide in advance what kind of home is sufficient, what kind of car meets their needs, what level of material comfort constitutes genuine satisfaction. Then they earn toward that target rather than constantly moving the goalpost. This might mean deciding that a more modest home is enough even when you could technically afford something far more expensive. It might mean deciding your current wardrobe is enough even as your income could support constant upgrades. Defining enough creates a finish line. Without it, you are running an endless race where lifestyle expansion always outpaces income growth. With it, you reach a point where additional income flows entirely to saving and investing rather than consumption. Someone who correctly defines enough and then starts earning significantly more builds wealth at a remarkable rate. The gap between income and enough goes directly toward financial freedom. Meanwhile, someone earning the same amount but constantly redefining enough upward might save almost nothing. Rule 9. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. The conventional view measures wealth by what you have. Houses, cars, possessions, the visible symbols of success. Minimalists measure wealth differently. They measure it by what they can choose. Can you leave a job that is destroying your mental health? Can you move to a new city for a relationship? Can you retire before 65? These options represent true wealth. Someone earning $150,000 but spending $145,000 has almost no optionality. They are chained to their income requirement. Someone earning $90,000 but spending $55,000 has extraordinary optionality. They can absorb disruptions, take risks, and make choices based on preference rather than financial necessity. Minimalists understand that optionality requires liquid resources far more than physical possessions. The money tied up in a car you do not need is money that cannot buy your freedom when you need it. The home equity locked in excess house is equity that cannot fund a career transition or extended break. This perspective transforms spending decisions. Each purchase is not simply exchanging money for an object. It is trading optionality for possession. Is this item worth reducing your ability to make free choices about your life? Sometimes yes. Most often no. Rule 10. Practice cyclical decluttering rather than annual purging. Most people who attempt minimalism do a massive purge, feel great for a few weeks, and then gradually accumulate back to their starting point. The purge feels productive. The gradual reaccumulation goes unnoticed. Within a few years, they are right back where they started. Minimalists avoid this pattern through cyclical decluttering. Rather than annual massive purges, they perform small regular reviews. Weekly glances at incoming items. Monthly evaluation of one category. quarterly assessment of overall accumulation trends. This cyclical approach catches accumulation early before it rebuilds to overwhelming levels. Removing 3 items per week is manageable and sustainable. Removing 300 items once per year feels overwhelming and often gets postponed indefinitely. The cyclical approach also maintains awareness. When you evaluate your possessions regularly, you notice patterns. You see which categories tend to grow. You identify which emotional states trigger acquisition. You recognize which marketing tactics work on you specifically. This awareness enables prevention rather than just treatment. Let me give you a practical implementation you can start today. This week, walk through your home with the replacement test in mind. Identify 10 items you would not replace if they disappeared. Sell, donate, or discard those items. Notice how it feels to remove things you do not actually want. This month, implement the 24-hour rule for all non-essential purchases. Track how many purchase desires survive the waiting period versus how many evaporate. The data will reveal how much of your spending is impulsive rather than intentional. This quarter, count your possessions in 3 categories that tend to accumulate for most people. Clothing, kitchen items, and media or entertainment are useful starting points. Set a maximum threshold for each category based on what you actually use. This year, define what enough looks like across major spending categories. What home is sufficient? What transportation is adequate? What wardrobe meets your genuine needs? Write these definitions down. Refer to them when the temptation arises to exceed your own standards. The financial transformation from these practices compounds over time. Someone who applies these rules consistently for 5 years accumulates substantially less while saving substantially more. The gap between their lifestyle and their income creates wealth that cannot be built any other way. Here's what nobody tells you about minimalism and money. The relationship is bidirectional. Owning less creates more money, but having more money also makes owning less feel natural. When your savings account is robust and your investments are growing, the urge to accumulate diminishes. The psychological need driving most consumption, the need for security and status, gets satisfied by financial strength rather than physical possessions. Your bank account tells the success story you want to hear. People trapped in consumption cycles often cannot explain why they buy so much. The truth is usually that spending temporarily fills an emotional void that financial insecurity creates. Address the insecurity through actual financial strength, and the compulsion to spend often dissolves on its own. This creates a virtuous cycle. Spending less leads to saving more. Saving more creates security. Security reduces the emotional drive to spend. Reduced spending accelerates saving further. Each turn of the cycle reinforces the next. The opposite cycle is equally powerful but destructive. Spending everything creates insecurity. Insecurity drives more spending as temporary emotional relief. More spending deepens insecurity. The cycle continues until some external shock forces a breaking point. The choice between these cycles determines financial trajectory more than income ever could. High earners trapped in the destructive cycle build nothing. Modest earners riding the virtuous cycle build everything. The minimalist rules I have outlined are not about suffering or deprivation. They are about recognizing that most consumption does not actually improve life satisfaction. Research consistently shows that beyond a baseline of security and comfort, additional purchases contribute minimally to well-being. Yet most people spend as if happiness scales linearly with spending. Minimalists align their behavior with this research. They spend enough to be comfortable and redirect the excess toward freedom rather than accumulation. They end up with less stuff and more life. The home I described at the beginning, the one belonging to someone with 18 months of savings, belongs to someone applying these rules consistently. They did not get there through exceptional income. They got there through exceptional clarity about what actually matters. The other home, the one belonging to someone 2 paychecks from crisis, belongs to someone who never questioned the assumption that more stuff equals better life. Both lifestyles are available to you regardless of what you currently earn. The choice is simply whether you want to own your possessions or whether you are comfortable with your possessions owning you. The math strongly favors the first option. So does the peace of mind.